Much of Australia's economy is being kept on temporary life support, either through the federal government's JobKeeper and JobSeeker schemes or through loan repayment relief from the banks. The coronavirus has really played havoc with our economy, with our lives, with our property markets. In fact, it's ironic that Melbourne, which has often been hailed as the world's most livable city, and it is, I'm biased, it's going through a crisis at the moment. It's going through lockdown. And even if you're not in Victoria, your economy, your lifestyle, what's going to happen is going to be affected by what's happening in Victoria. So what do we have to do differently in this current environment? Now, you may not be able to stop the waves, but you may learn how to surf. So today, in two separate sessions, I want to share with you, first of all, the property investment rules that you need to keep in mind in these troubled times. And then I'm going to share with you some things that you're going to need to change to become more successful in the post-COVID world, because the world will be different, life will be different, and yes, we are going to get through this, and life is going to be great because we're living in a great part of the world. But let's get through the current challenges and let me give you some hints how to do it. So welcome to today's episode of the Michael Yardney podcast.
Welcome to the Michael Yardney podcast, where twice each week you will learn a number of new ideas regarding success, property investment and money in around 30 minutes. Our show is brought to you by Metropole, who specialise in helping you grow, protect and pass on your wealth through strategic property and wealth advice. Now here's your host, Michael Yardney, Australia's most trusted property commentator who has once again been voted Australia's leading property investment advisor. That's the fifth time he's won a similar award in the last 7 years.
What type of property is going to be popular, more sought after, once we get through this coronavirus pandemic? Well, if I told you this time last year that it would be in the midst of a global pandemic, with our borders closed, with footballers playing in front of empty stadiums, with the Olympics postponed, with Melbourne in lockdown, there's not a chance you would have believed me. Yet here we are. The world is a crazy place, and COVID-19's changed it immeasurably, and in some ways, forever. Like most huge societal and political shifts, these changes will inevitably be reflected in our property markets because of the way we live. Priorities are likely to change, with some buyers willing to pay a little more for particular types of properties that got pandemic appeal. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, I think it's fair to say that this pandemic has exposed some existing issues in both employment and our housing markets, and they were just a bit too easy to ignore in the past. You've only got to look at the shocking situation in our aged care facilities around the country to see what many accommodation providers simply aren't set up to cope with. They can't cope with these plague-like conditions. And the same goes for some other dwelling types. Remember those hard lockdowns in the public towers in Melbourne in early July? At the time, Acting Chief Medical Officer Paul Kelly labelled them vertical cruise ships. And it's easy to see why. With busy lift, shared hallways, communal facilities like laundry and garbage disposals, high-rise living is the ideal breeding ground for viruses. And we've seen that both in Australia and overseas. So it stands to reason that buyers of 2021 and beyond might not be so keen to live in an apartment or that particular type of apartment, and they don't want to be breathing the same air and touching the same lift buttons as hundreds of other people. Instead, they're going to prefer to purchase their standalone dwellings that they can barricade, they can sanitise to their heart's content in the event of another wave of the virus. We're not going to forget this for some time. Of course, high-rise buildings were designed to organise as many people as possible in the one place. Health and hygiene weren't a consideration when they designed them, were they? However, in times of pandemic, it's necessary to reduce contact with everything that's associated with high-rise buildings. Elevators, elevator buttons, door handles, surfaces, and above all, neighbours. After forced isolation on different floors above the ground, often without a balcony or a terrace, we're desperately going to want to have a house, a townhouse, a villa unit, or for some people, low-rise, low-density apartments. Now, these houses, they can be small, but they're going to want a courtyard or a terrace, somewhere where you can have your coffee in the morning. Now, Looking back throughout time, the primary function of your house, your home, was safety. Initially, it served as a hiding place from bad weather, from predatory animals. Then, tall stone fortresses were built to prevent the enemy from getting in. Today, people need a house that can effectively provide social isolation. More than escape from routine and urban chaos, a house now offers a retreat from viruses, from infections. We're thinking differently, aren't we? So urbanisation may take a step back, as we don't want to live in the big towers in the middle of the city anymore, but we're going to want to live in the suburbs instead. While apartments in high-rise towers are going to be out of favour, I still think there's going to be room for those more spacious, solidly built, established apartments. Those ones that we used to call flats, because many of them got their own balconies, they don't have communal facilities, and they're located in our inner and middle ring suburbs. They're going to suit many tenants and many first home buyers. We're also going to be saying goodbye to one of those other big trends of recent years, open plan spaces, with entrances, living rooms, dining spaces and kitchens united. And of course that occurred in many of those newly built apartment towers, didn't it? I think in the aftermath of this pandemic, the entrance could well be separated so you can leave your shoes, your clothes, your belongings on the street rather than carrying dirt into the living quarters. Similarly, we're going to want separate work and living spaces, so the open plan style may not be as suitable. Widespread closures during the lockdown also brought home how much we rely on our public parks, on gyms, on kids' activities to keep us all happy and healthy. I can only imagine what a nightmare those stay-at-home orders must have been for parents with small children living in apartments without gardens, without areas for them to play, or for gym junkies forced to substitute cans of baked beans for the usual weights in their at-home workouts. As such, room for a home gym set-up space for the kids to do their karate or their dance classes online, or regional outdoor area for the families to get some fresh air and vitamin D, they're likely to be a shift from a nice-to-have category into a not-negotiable list for a lot of owner-occupiers. And if you think about it, tenants will have a similar wish list. That means savvy property investors are going to have to cater for this. What about the way we work and live? During quarantine, most of us were forced to work from home. Of course, there was a group of people who on the first day that quarantine was over, they raced to the office to meet their colleagues and drink that office coffee. But there were also those of us who weren't so keen to return to the office. And currently there are some who aren't able to return to the office. More attention is going to be given to a workplace from home. Adequate home office facilities are going to be right on the top of many buyers' property wish list. Anyone who's been forced to squeeze their laptop next to their kids' schoolwork on the kitchen table or host a Zoom meeting in the spare room with a family washing hanging in the background, they're going to appreciate the need for a dedicated workspace in their next home, aren't they? Whether it's one for a couple of the kids to be able to work remotely or for mum and dad to work without leaving the house, the desk in the corner of the lounge room simply isn't going to cut it in the post-pandemic property market. So spatial organisation is going to change, with the place to work at home no longer being the desk in the corner office and an office chair and a lamp slotted somewhere in the corner of a living room. Now it's going to need a completely separate room. So buyers and also tenants are going to be seeking a fully equipped, possibly even sound insulated, separate home office with large windows, but they could maybe put blackout curtains there. But it's also going to require all the tech, plenty of PowerPoints, a strong NBN connection, and an area for a Zoom green screen. Now, for sellers, this means styling that spare room or your office zone appropriately. So when potential purchasers come through, they can envisage filing their reports or tallying up their accounts in that space. Add some comfortable ergonomic furniture. Highlight the windows for natural light that you've created, this special home office area there, so potential buyers can run their empire while wearing the comfiest track pants in the corner. Other things buyers are going to look for post-pandemic might include a spare room to house a relative in the event of another lockdown to avoid splitting up the family. It's not just the property itself that's going to need to meet these new environmental concerns, is it? Location is going to play a big part as well. Buyers are going to want to know they're within the walking distance or within the zone of good groceries and supplies that can be easily delivered, cheaply delivered, and probably also have adequate storage for stockpiling. Okay, not panic buying, but stockpiling things. That could also be on their wish list as well. Storage is going to be much more important. Now, as everything around us evolves and adapts to this new normal, homeowners, investors are going to have to do the same. We're going to have to view our properties with a post-pandemic eye. So, if you're looking to buy a new property, you're going to have to look at things differently. If you currently have investment properties, let's have a look at how you can adapt them to new environment. Looking at the bigger picture has always been the key to your success as a property investor. But more than ever now, whether you're hunting for a new place to live, looking to add to your portfolio of property investments, or sprucing up a property that's going to be re-let or ready to sell, it's absolutely critical to understand how our property needs, requirements are going to change moving forward. We're very aware of this at Metropole because we manage over $2 billion worth of assets for clients in our property management division. So we understand what's happening in the market with tenants, and similarly our buyers agents who are still out actively buying properties on the ground. So we don't fly in and out. We've got our on-the-ground teams in Sydney, Melbourne and Brisbane are seeing what's happening, what's selling, what people want. So it's important to get an understanding of that. More importantly, though, you've got to go back to the big picture if you're planning to grow your property portfolio or start in the property field, and start with a strategic plan to get you where you want to get to. So why not get my team at Metropole on your side to help you? Go to metropole.com.au and find out about what we do. We always start by helping you put a strategic property plan together. You've got a plan to become the person you plan to become. We bring the future forward now and plan so you know which way to head, what's realistic, what's possible, what you should do. And if you've already got a property portfolio, what we'd be doing is assessing, well, is it actually going to help you get to where you want to get to? And only then could you maybe use our buyers agents, our renovations, our development, property management or other services. We'd love to be part of your wealth creation journey. So go to metropole.com.au, find out a bit about what we do, organise a time to have a chat with one of my team, and I'd love to be part of your wealth creation journey. You're probably listening to this podcast because you're looking for more success in life, whether it's in money, within your business, with property investment. That's why people tend to come here. And I've found that most property investors won't change their level of wealth until they themselves change. Now, rather than disagree with me, please humour me for a moment and listen on, because I think I've got a particularly important message to give you in today's session. You see, sometimes we love change and sometimes we hate it. In fact, some of us love to change and others fear it. So why is it so difficult for many of us to change? It's because change makes us move out of our comfort zone. It takes courage to leave something familiar, something that you're comfortable with, and to try something new. In fact, one of the jobs of our subconscious mind is survival, to protect us. It likes to keep things the same, preferring safety and security over the untested and the unproven. Haven't we heard people say before, better the devil you know than the devil you don't know? Well, we tend to believe that if we stick with what we know, with what we're familiar with, then we won't get hurt. But the problem is, in terms of wealth creation, it's not what we know that's holding many of us back. It's what we think we know that isn't so that's holding us back. Now, I know you're used to listening to my thoughts on the podcast and reading my thoughts on property in these podcasts and blogs, but for a moment I'd like to share my thoughts on wealth creation instead, because really that's what you're wanting when you're coming here to learn about property. You're really wanting to get the results and the certainty and the direction by having a substantial asset base of properties. That's really not property that you're after. So I'd like for a moment to discuss why many Australians are not as far advanced with their wealth creation as they'd like to be. And I'm not talking about the external circumstances and the recession and COVID and all the other things. They're external excuses. You see, most Australians are not as successful as they'd like to be, haven't developed the financial freedom they'd like to be, yet they continue to do the same things over and over, hoping somehow things will be different. Think about it. If you're going to keep doing the things you always did, you're going to keep getting the results you've always got. If what you've been looking for is where you're looking, chances are you'd already have found it. Doing more of the same, even harder, even longer, isn't usually the answer. Being willing to change, though, will create better results. However, the good news is you can have more. You can become more successful because you personally can change. You can become more. So what is it that holds most of us back? And many years ago, I coined the term and actually trademarked it, the wealth operating system, your financial blueprint, the programming you received as a child. It was initially described by Wallace Wattles in The Science of Getting Rich. I know it was almost a century ago, and more recently by T. Harv Eker in his great book, Secrets of the Millionaire Minds. And they said, your thoughts lead to your feelings. Your feelings lead to your actions, and your actions determine your results. So it's no coincidence that your inner world creates your outer world. The programming you received as a child, that leads to your thoughts, your fears, your limitations about wealth creation today. So one of the first steps in change is changing your thoughts. Now you say, oh yeah, Michael, that doesn't apply to me. Interestingly, once a year I get together with a group of already very, very successful property investors, business people and entrepreneurs at Wealth Retreat. And when we unpack this in detail, when we help them build the next 5 years of their life, design the next 5 years, give them strategies and new goals, in the security of this room of already other successful people where everyone's left out their Superman capes at the front door, so there's no egos, you'll find that even the most successful people are held back by limiting beliefs. We are all, not just them, we're all driving around with one foot on the accelerator and one on the brake. We're holding ourselves back. So I guess my question to you is, how do you think about money, about success and about prosperity? What do you say to yourself? What does that little voice in your head say? Now you may say, no, there isn't. What little voice? No, there isn't one. Yes, there is. It's the one that's saying that now. You see, for many of us, our thoughts revolve around fear, around scarcity, around limitation. The problem is what you focus on expands. So if you think about fear, about scarcity, about limitation, what do you achieve? Now remember what I said a moment ago. Your thoughts lead to your feelings lead to your actions lead to your results. So what happens when you think about fear, scarcity, limitation? You see, money's a result. Wealth is a result. Your health is a result. Your results in all fields of your life are caused by you, by your actions. Now, this occurs in your outer world, but as I was trying to tell you, it's determined by your thoughts and your feelings in your inner world. For many Australians, their current mindset just won't let them get to the next level of wealth. Now, I know they blame the government and their job and the banks and their education or their parents. But it's not that. And it's not the lack of knowledge that they've got or they want. They think they need to know more. It's not what they don't know that prevents them from succeeding. As I said before, it's what they think they know that isn't correct that's their greatest obstacle. The way they think is their greatest obstacle. It's because of their programming, as I said, their wealth operating system, the way that they were programmed by things they heard, by things they saw, and the things they experienced when they were young. This is a type of thermostat that's usually set in our childhood and gives each of us our feelings and our beliefs about money and wealth. The problem is, for many Australians, their thermostat isn't set for wealth. Now, when I used to run seminars, I used to say, hands up, anyone in the room who's had multimillionaire parents. Now, if my kids weren't in the room, they probably didn't. There was hardly anyone who put up their hand. But sometimes there was one or two people, and you'd say, hey, don't you think the conversation around their kitchen table was different to the conversation around your kitchen table, around my kitchen table when I grew up? So if you had wealthy, successful, financially affluent parents, then it's possible, it's likely that they've helped you become more financially affluent. But for most of us, our parents, despite being well-meaning, didn't give us the wealth operating system that we deserve. As I said, the problem for most Australians is their wealth thermostat isn't set for wealth. Many of us need to intentionally change our inner world, our way of thinking. You need to start thinking about prosperity, about abundance, and about success to enable us to attract those very things. First, we need to change the way we think about ourselves. We need to see ourselves as a wealthy person, as a wealth attractor, as a wealth creator. Now, before you turn off and say Michael's into woo-woo stuff today, if I thought I could help you become more wealthy talking about the next property hotspot or when the property market is going to boom or turn, that's what I'd be spending this session with you on. But I genuinely believe that despite having all the information about property, about wealth, about shares, about business, about finance, unless you increase your financial thermostat, you'll never get the wealth you desire. So please bear with me, because this is the big difference. This is the reason why people go to podcasts and blogs and seminars and courses, and only a small group ever become financially successful. This is the information other people don't tell us about. So you need to change. You need to change some of the ingrained thinking patterns. Now, I'm not belittling the success you already have. I don't know you personally. Thousands and thousands of people, tens of thousands of people download this podcast every episode. The thing, though, is that we're all driving around with one foot on the accelerator, as I said, and one on the brake. So yes, even you will have some limiting beliefs. So you need to change some of those ingrained thinking patterns, or overcome some of the negative ways that have developed as a result of your past experiences. The problem is many of us are scared of change. We find it hard to change, even though change is natural. In fact, the only constant in this world, the only thing you can absolutely count on is change itself. Often because our subconscious mind's programmed to keep things the same and protect us, that's the reason we have difficulty changing, as I said. Yet most successful people all share one critical characteristic. It's the trait of adaptability. They embrace change. They look for opportunities to expand and learn. Another common characteristic of successful people is that they've got a mentor and they belong to a mastermind group. They hang around other like-minded successful people. Now, a moment ago I mentioned about Wealth Retreat. When I speak to people who are going to join us at Wealth Retreat, one of the biggest challenges a lot of people have is isolation. They don't have many people to talk with about their wealth, about their business, about their success. Not people that understand what's going on. And your peer group does matter. It does make a difference. So you've got to hang around like-minded, successful people. If you continue to do the things you've always done, you're going to continue to get the results you've always achieved. So if you want to move forward in your wealth creation, you're going to have to hang around different people. You're going to have different mentors. I think it was Einstein who said the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, but expecting a different result. You see, results will change when people change their way of thinking. If any of what I've just said to you makes an impression, you're going to realize if you want to get to another place in your life financially, then you're going to have to do something differently. And doing things differently requires thinking differently first. If you change your way of thinking, you'll change your actions. If you change your actions, you'll change your results. But the investors that I've seen stuck in the same financial position just didn't understand the importance of what I'm sharing with you today. However, as I've already explained, you can have more because you can become more. You see, here's the other side of the coin. It says that unless you change how you are, you're always going to have what you've got. Now, all this property stuff I share with you regularly is good. It's powerful. But on its own, it just won't do it. In order to have more, you've got to become more. The rich keep getting richer because they're programmed to, they're conditioned to, while most of us are boxed in by the boundaries of our thoughts. The message I'm trying to get to you is wealth is a result. It's a result of your thoughts and your beliefs, which lead to actions. There's a common theme here, isn't there? So it's important for us to understand that we are all fully responsible for our own financial results. And again, I'm not belittling where you are at the moment. As I said, tens of thousands of people listen to this show every episode. Some are beginners. Some are already very, very successful investors. Many of them are clients of Metropole. Many of you are part of my mentorship program. I know a small group of you I've met personally and spent 5 days working closely with you at Wealth Retreat. So I understand that there's a whole range of people going to be listening to this. And those who have gotten to the next level understand that their future is their own responsibility. If things aren't working out for you the way you want them to, you need to stop taking the easy way out and blaming outside factors. It's not your boss's fault, nor is it the government's fault, or the low interest rates, or the high interest rates, or the property market. And it's not the lack of information. There's so much information out there, not just what I give you, but what so many other people give you. You need to stop justifying where you are or where you're not financially at the moment. Most of what you have today, you've attracted by becoming the person you are today. If you want to change things in your life financially, you've got to change first. Everything you're doing right now, you're in the habit of doing. And everything you're not doing right now, you're in the habit of not doing. Now, if you've heard me speak on the topic of the psychology of success, you'll know I suggest you always get what your subconscious wants, not what you think you want. Now, I know you may be uncomfortable with me saying this, but the level of wealth you're experiencing at the moment is the level of wealth you're most comfortable with. You'll never create more wealth than you're unconsciously comfortable with. I know some of you are saying, Michael, that's not fair. You don't know. I've lost my job because of the economy at the moment, or my properties aren't working because of this or that. You don't know about my education, or I've got 5 kids and I can't afford. No. The level of wealth you've created up to now is the level you're most comfortable with. Look, let me put it a different way. If you took all the money in the world and distributed it evenly, I believe in, 4 or 5 years it'd be back in the same proportions again. Do you agree with that? What about all those people who win the lottery or get an inheritance? And you've heard it before, they've lost it as they've squandered it in 4 or 5 years' time. Now, I've actually never come across anyone who's won a major lottery, but I have come across a lot of people who've actually got a major inheritance, and after a couple of years it's all gone. Now, thank you for allowing me to have a bit of a rant, because this is a topic that's very important to me. I'm very keen to make as many people as financially successful as possible. So I have a recommendation for you if this made some sense to you. I'd like you to learn the science of becoming wealthy by joining my mentorship program. It's something I put together way back in 2006, and over the years we've had so many people graduate from my mentorship program and come out a very different person in the way they think, in the way they act, and more importantly, in the results they get. This program is for you if you'd like more freedom and more choices in life. This program is for you if you're tired of working harder and longer hours and you want to build a property investment business that works for you, but you're wondering why it's not working as well as you'd like to. It's definitely for you if you're already involved in property and want to take it up a notch, shorten your learning curve and become a successful investor. But let me explain, it's not a program about property. It's about you. It's teaching you the 35 traits of all the successful business people, entrepreneurs and investors I know. It's all the information I have learned from my mentors and the hundreds of thousands of dollars and many, many hours I've spent over the last 30 years learning about success. So I guess my question to you is, do you have what it takes to become a successful investor? If building a multi-million-dollar property portfolio that supports your lifestyle was easy, everyone would be doing it. But the reality is it's not easy to do. It's not easy to get to that next level. So have a look at my mentorship program. Go to michaelyardney.com.au. There will be a link in the show notes, because my mentorship program has worked for thousands of investors over the years. Some have been more successful than others. In fact, I've gotten to the point where I can tell in a few minutes whether somebody has what it takes for their investing to succeed, and whether they're going to be one of those 90% of investors who don't get to financial freedom they deserve. But it doesn't have to be this way. I know what it takes not only to succeed, but to really succeed in property investment, in life, in business. Not because I've written the classic textbook on it, but because I've worked with thousands of investors and I've also built my own very successful, very substantial property portfolio and successfully grown it over probably close to 8 property cycles now. And now I'm ready to share my secrets with you, secrets of success. By the way, you need a lot more than real estate strategies. So go to michaelyardney.com.au and learn about my mentorship program. We're going to get access to me. You're going to get structured learning. You're going to be able to join my network. So thank you for allowing me to share these thoughts and ideas with you, because I'd like to be part of your wealth creation journey. Well, thanks for listening to today's show. I hope it's given you some more clarity in these unusual times we're getting through. And remember my message right at the beginning, that we will get through this. Stage 4 lockdown in Victoria is not stage 4 cancer. Spring always follows winter. It has since the world began. And I'm going to put my money on the fact that it's going to happen again now. I've lived through multiple downturns. So you need to speak to somebody, you need to listen to somebody who's got the perspective of that. So I hope today I've helped you a little bit. And if it has given you some assistance, some guidance, please tell somebody else about the Michael Yardney podcast as well, because my aim is to get as many people as financially literate as possible to help them become more successful, whether it's in property investment, with money, or in their lives in general. In the meantime, you can catch up with me on social media. Just look out for Michael Yardney, but I'll be back twice a week with this podcast and daily in my property update newsletter if you don't already get that. In the meantime, have a great week. Make it a great week.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Michael Yardney podcast, which was brought to you by Metropole, who help their clients grow, protect, and pass on their wealth through strategic property and wealth advice. If you like what you heard and don't already subscribe, you'll find us on iTunes or on your favourite Android app as the Michael Yardney Podcast. Watch out for our next show, which comes to you twice a week, and you'll learn some new ideas about property investment, success and money in around 30 minutes. To get more of Michael's thoughts, go across to www.propertyupdate.com.au and sign up for his daily morning briefing, and you'll hear from not only Michael but a group of leading property success and money experts. And just a reminder that the information you heard in this show today is general educational advice and not specific investment advice, as we don't know your personal circumstances. If you're looking for specific advice, why not ask the team at Metropole to help you?